John here, guys, and today we're talking about the Apex 4-inch frame, and I'm combining that with these brand new Chief motors by Lumenier. They are 2005 size, 2600 kV, and my goodness, they are both inexpensive and extra juicy.
Nice.
That's nice. This is all the Chief gear, Chief frame right here.
Yep, Chief V2 frame.
I know you got the motors. I got some of your 2005 motors I'm working on right now.
Those are some cinders. The
What else you got coming out in the pipeline?
Right now, you know, just keeping everything stocked. There's a lot of stuff going on. Of course, trying to keep all the racers happy that are flying it. The V2 motors and frame, you know, I'm so happy with it that there's not much, like I wouldn't even want to change anything, so.
The Apex 5-inch has just about the least amount of vibration and resonance of any frame out there. And I did note that whenever I reviewed the Apex 5-inch, just how good it flew. I couldn't put my finger on exactly why, and it's because I'm not an engineer doing all of those frame resonance studies. So before we get into that, let's quickly go over the build. I'm using a SpeedX 25 amp along with a CL Racing F4 flight controller here. I'm using the Caddx Nebula Pro. As I said, the Chief 2005 2600 kV motors. And I am rounding that out with the Gym Fan 4-inch Hurricane props. Those are my favorite 4-inch props. You can use those on both a T-mount and a regular shaft, so they're very versatile. So let's talk about the Apex frame. This might be the best flying frame. It's just so smooth. I think that Chris Rossner was saying that the smoothness of the Apex frames comes from that key design. You'll also notice that for a 4-inch size, this has very, very thick arms. These arms are like 4 1/4 thick. That's basically the size of a full 5-inch frame in a lot of aspects. You'll notice that on the Apex 5-inch, they also use very thick arms. They use 6mm arms compared to most frames which use 5. So they've upped the arm thickness on the 4-inch in that same exact way. Now, given that this does have a little bit of weight, I'm going to put the weight on the screen right here. I needed a motor that was going to be powerful. Now, 2004 has been all the rage at a very high kV. I really like the Diatone and the Brother Hobby that are both around 3000 kV. This was a little bit lower kV, but the size was bigger. It gives you that taller stator to give you a little bit more power throughout. Now, how does it fly in a real world scenario? This combination is just magic. This is the first 4-inch quad that I've flown that if I just turned it on and flew it without knowing what it was, I would almost swear to you that this is a 5-inch. Now, everybody always wants the 5-inch feel. Why is that? Because it flies so good. You get that hang time, you get that power to weight ratio without too much floatiness. With a lot of the lightweight recipes that we've been experiencing, especially the toothpick craze the past few years, you get that power, you get that juice, but you get some floatiness. So it doesn't behave like a freestyle quad necessarily would. So why is that important? If you fly a lot of different quads in a lot of different sizes like I do, muscle memory is really key. The reason we want everything to fly like a 5-inch is so that if I go fly 6 or 7 packs with this, then I go racing, then I go freestyling, then I go do something else. If they all feel drastically different, they're all messing up my muscle memory when flying. So if I can make everything fly how I expect it to, I'll be able to fly better. I'll be able to establish better muscle memory and better habits through stick time. And it will behave in the most predictable way, allowing me to do the most precise and daring freestyle maneuvers with this thing. And that's exactly what this does. It is so smooth. I could almost just take my hands off of the sticks altogether and it just track in a straight line. That's something that only a really well-tuned quad will do. And I basically just have default Betaflight 4.2 on here. It flies great. The power of these is quite juicy, and it's not overpowered. It's real easy on these light setups to get overpowered, and you would all of a sudden have more punch and more lift than you know what to do with. But then you have so much power that it's very difficult to maneuver and control in small spaces, which, you know, having a smaller quad like this, that's the benefit, is being able to fly it in smaller areas. In addition to it being very maneuverable and powerful, these motor and props are quiet, so you can take it more places. If you go from park to park to park to field to trail, and you can't find anywhere to fly your 5-inch because you know it's going to be loud, you know people are going to see it, you know it's going to potentially bother someone, having something of this size is a little bit more versatile because you can go off to the side and not really bother people too much. The sound that this makes is roughly half or less than a full-size 5-inch. My 5-inch version of this Apex, which was also a little bit heavy, but I put powerful motors, so that's my personal favorite recipe. Is you get a quad, it doesn't matter the weight, you want to get something that flies how you want it to fly, then you choose the motor that's appropriate to move that amount of weight by getting an extra juicy motor. Pair it with this, you have all of the feel you want. You can notice the hang time on some of these punches that I'm doing on here, and it's just absolutely amazing. I can't believe how fun this quad is, and it really builds up with that handsome style. You get the same exact dual bottom plate here so that the plate doesn't run all the way across. You have the same nice hardware here. Now, one thing that I absolutely hated, and Impulse RC, I'm sorry, but this is just a garbage decision. All of the screws on the top plate and the bottom plate are M2.5. M2.5. Now that's problematic because they look at first glance exactly like an M1.5 screw. So when I was building this, I was waiting for motors forever. I couldn't decide what motors to get, so it sat there for a couple of months, half finished. By the time I finally picked these Chief motors and I went to get started, I had misplaced the screws. No matter, I have like a million sets of hardware everywhere. Well, then I realized this is not an M.15 screw, and I was essentially screwed. I could not finish the build. Disappointed! Thanks to Gibson, one of my local guys who was able to loan me some of these screws, I could finish the build. But if it wasn't for that, like, I almost had to just buy another frame to get some of these screws. It's a non-standard screw. We don't use this size, and my goodness, this is a heinous component selection. So if you do choose one of these, take the screws as soon as you get it until you're ready to finish the build. If you have a fireproof safe or you have a safe deposit box, go place these M2.5 screws in there, because you'll never be able to find another set. It's next to impossible, and I hate them for doing that. But if you can get around that and you never lose a screw, my goodness, this thing flies excellent. Now, I know people are gonna ask, out of the new tadpole that's coming out, out of the shocker light, out of this, what do you get? If you want a good compromise between, well, let's just give you 4 choices. Maximum long range, fly Woo Explorer. It's basically underpowered but super efficient. You can fly forever. If you want total freestyle bashability, you gotta go with the Apex. If you want something in between those two, which is good, which is basically, you want something that's good at freestyle and good at long range, and you can scale the motors up or down, I would say the Shocker Light or the Armatan Tadpole 4-inch. If you want that lifetime warranty, you're gonna wanna go with the Armatan. If you absolutely crash front end towards the camera, you're probably going to want to choose the Armatan or the Shocker Light. If you break arms and motors and stuff like that, you're probably going to want to choose this Apex 4-inch, because it has a little bit less camera protection, but it has a lot of beefiness in these arms. This is the easiest to tune. There is a little bit of room up here that you probably could get an action camera mount and put it on there. So good job on this, other than the heinous selection of hardware. Thanks, guys.